Hello everyone, I am the Old Connoisseur, and welcome to my review on the 6th episode of the 8th season of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, also known as Surf and or Turf. This episode was the kind of episode where you just have to wait for everything to build up and pile on top of each other until it just comes crashing down, and then you have to resolve the situation. In that sense, it was predictable. I could see what was going on. I could see how the characters were, starting to pick sides and how, it was going to end. And it was still enjoyable nonetheless. The episode basically revolves around the CMC being chosen to solve a friendship problem by the cutie map for the very first time, and it's in Mount Eris and subsequently Sequestria. And of course, we need some exposition about what happened in the movie, because obviously Season 8 is actually taking the continuity of the MLP movie into account. So, we get a couple of scenes where it's sort of just like a callback for the movie, so for those who have seen the movie like me, it was a little annoying. Nonetheless, the whole point of this episode is that, first off, Twilight needs signatures for Silverstream to go on a field trip by her parents, and her brother is going to be there to help guide the CMC and Twilight around. Secretly, Twilight also wants a break away from her duties as a princess, and she just wants to relax, and she wants to just travel somewhere. And I find it sort of funny how there are times where she's pulled into something, and it feels like the kind of situation where you have a parent and you want to hang out with them or something, but they have obligations, but those obligations are just like really some like relaxing thing with their own adult friends. It had that kind of a vibe. And speaking of vibes, I got a sort of divorced parents kind of a vibe, even if that wasn't the intent of the episode. The whole friendship problem with this episode is that Silverstream's brother Terramar is debating where he has to live, either on Mount Eris with the prideful hippogriffs or with the sea ponies in Sequestria, because you see, the hippogriffs and the sea ponies, now that they're free of the Storm King and the fear of him hunting them down, they are now sort of split into two. You have some hippogriffs who have clearly stayed on Mount Eris, and some sea ponies who enjoy living life there, or they've just been used to it and they don't want change, so they're staying in Sequestria. And of course, Terramar's mother and father, who are, of course, Silverstream's mother and father, are split up between the two. And it gives Terramar the impression that he has to choose. And it gave me the vibe of divorced parents, because he mentioned that he feels like he's letting one or the other down depending on where he is. And throughout this episode, of course, I'm thinking, and a lot of people are probably thinking, well, what's the problem of just going back and forth? It seems like a hop, skip, and a jump away. And that's sort of what happens at the end of the episode, but we'll talk about that later. We see how, obviously, the hippogriffs and the sea ponies are different in sort of like a mindset. The hippogriffs like to show off that they're hippogriffs, that they're free, and they show off their strength. And the sea ponies are very majestic. So the CMC agree that they should make a sort of pro and con list for both Mount Eris and Sequestria to help Terramar decide where he wants to live. Again, that doesn't really matter, because we all know that by the end of the episode, he's not going to have to choose. Nonetheless, it was evident that the CMCs were themselves not going to agree on which place was better, and that's exactly what ends up happening. Sweetie Belle loves the harmonious heights in Mount Eris because of its nature and because of the sort of music-like sounds that all the creatures make. And she loves dancing and singing in the heights because, she likes singing. And in Sequestria, Scootaloo feels like she can fly because you've probably had those dreams where you're sort of flying, but it's sort of, you're like swimming in the air. It's that kind of sensation. So to Scootaloo, it feels like flying, which is just fantastic for her. And she also just likes the colorful animals and creatures. Whereas, of course, that doesn't apply vice versa. Scootaloo sees cons in what Sweetie Belle sees as pros, and Sweetie Belle sees cons in what Scootaloo sees as pros, and Apple Bloom is in the middle, so she can't decide either. And that just causes Terramar to sort of just run away and want time to himself, which is fine. Sometimes we need time to herself to just think. And Twilight, while being dragged away by both Terramar's mother and father, eventually realizes that, wait, this is exactly how Terramar feels, because she can't make up her mind as to who she wants to hang out with once they both call her to do something. And it gave that sense of, you don't want to disappoint one or the other. And in Twilight's position of like royalty, she probably really doesn't want to disappoint the other, although she's sort of looked up to in Mount Eris and Sequestria because of her saving, the entire kingdom basically through her actions of defeating the Storm King with the main six. And the episode ends off where they agree that it really isn't that hard to just go back and forth, and Terramar's mother and father apologized for giving him the impression that he had to choose. In addition, earlier in the episode, Terramar explains that hippogriffs and sea ponies his age have already decided where they have to stay, and that made me wonder, is that true, or is that just him, overreacting? Because obviously, at the end of the episode, it's made clear that he was overreacting and that he didn't have to choose, but if he's saying that others are choosing, is that true? That could be a whole other moral of peer pressure. Basically, you don't have to be forced into choosing. You don't have to be forced into doing anything. Do what's comfortable with you. Sometimes you have to force yourself to, to increase your strength, but you don't have to be forced by others. So, a lot of good morals, honestly. There was a lot to talk about. And I got the sense that this episode was going to basically have the CMC sort of mess up, but they're the ones who are learning a lesson as well. They're learning a lesson in, first off, teamwork and not, just breaking up so easily, because at the end of the song in the episode, we see that Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo clearly don't want to talk to each other, and I felt like that was an overreaction in and of itself. I believe that Apple Bloom was probably the best character, at least the best CMC, because she was the middle mare, I guess you would say. She wasn't wanting to hurt either side. She was being complacent, and she was the one who was communicating for Scootaloo and Sweetie Belle during their sort of isolation period, which was a little comedic, being they were right next to each other. But I enjoyed all of the CMC in their own ways. I do like the designs, obviously, of the hippogriffs and the sea ponies. I like it a whole lot. I think that the fact that the big pearl that was used to transform the sea ponies and hippogriffs is now broken up into little pieces is interesting in concept, but dangerous, because villains like Chrysalis could get her hooves on that and, invade the Sequestria. I guess that it still would be a hard task to accomplish, because the hippogriffs are so strong and mighty that they would be a good defense. It just seems like they're too free-going with the pearl pieces, because it seems too easy to get your hooves on it, basically. But that's like a little side note. They're not going to tackle that. The necklaces are safe. They're not going to get stolen, I don't think. Anyway, I guess that's about it. Please share your thoughts on the episode. I really did enjoy it. I would say it's one of the better ones so far. And just tell me what you think. And once again, if you like these reviews and these reacts that I do, subscribe, do whatever you want. I just appreciate the comments, to be honest. So yeah, I will see you in the next video. Oh, also, I made a little update video saying that I thought that Canada was airing 2 episodes of MLP every weekend and how I wouldn't be able to follow that. Turns out that Treehouse TV has actually rescheduled their airings, so now it's all good. I don't have to worry about, falling behind and not getting the views, or at least the comments that I hope. So yeah, good news. Woo.